Hi everyone, welcome. We will get going here in just a few minutes. I'm going to let everyone log on here. All right, for those of you that are just joining us here, feel free to write in the chat box that should be at the bottom of your screen where you're listening from today. Sweden, welcome. Dominican Republic, Canada, Brazil, Germany, Miami, Oregon. Wow, all over the place. Colombia, Bulgaria, Korea, Mississippi. Welcome, everyone. Great. All right. Well, hi, and thank you so much for joining today's webinar, Beyond the Books, Exploring Halt's Career Services with NAV Dutta and Halt alum Umesh Tiwari. Today, we'll discuss Halt's career services, what we have to offer our students, and we'll also hear from Umesh, who will discuss his personal experience with Halt, as well as how he got into his current position. Additionally, we'll make time for questions at the end of the session. The webinar will last about 40 or so minutes, 45 minutes, including the Q&A. So please make sure to input any of your questions in the chat function, again, just at the bottom of your Zoom screen. In addition to Umesh and Nav being available to answer any questions, we'll also have Halt's Master's, MBA, and Executive MBA enrollment advisors available to answer any specific questions that you may have. So now I would love to open this up to a conversation with Nav and Umesh. Would love to just ask you guys a few questions, but before doing so, if you can both introduce yourself, that would be wonderful. And I'll start with Nav.
Sure, thank you, Brooke. My name's Nav. I'm based out of our Boston campus. Currently, I am the head of employer relations for the U.S., which means I work with alumni and our employer partners, to help connect them with Halt students. I am thrilled to see so many people here on the call, and even more thrilled that I see Toronto and Vancouver represented because I am Canadian, but I am, again, working out of our Boston campus.
Great, thank you. Umesh, if you want to give us a little introduction as well, maybe what you studied at Halt, what campus you were at, etc. That would be great.
Sure. Thanks, Brooke and Nav, and thanks everyone for joining and taking time. So I've done my MBA from Hult San Francisco campus in 2015. I rotated to Boston. I'm also an engineer. I did my computer science engineering way back in 2004. I have 15 years of experience in the IT industry. I'm currently working as a senior technical program manager in Amazon. It's been around 4 years, 9 months that I've been with Amazon right after my graduation at Halt.
Great, thank you. Okay, so why don't we just jump right into asking the questions. Nav, I'm probably going to start with you and asking about career services. So what does career services do to support Halt students?
Sure. So it's a loaded question because there's a lot that we do, and there's a lot that gets started right now, right? So many of you are on the call here because you want to learn more about career support, learn more about how to start planning your career, before you even take your seat. Our motto is, start early. And so our team essentially works with students on a number of different things, right? So when you think about your typical career center in a college or university, there's a lot of that basic baseline stuff that our advisors do, right? Which is like your resumes and your LinkedIn, and they help you with cover letters. We go a bit deeper than that as well, right? Understanding that we're dealing with an international student population whose job searches are complicated, or if you want to say more involved, in the sense that you are looking for work overseas, right? And so there's a lot of nuances that you have to be aware of. So our team takes students through that journey of understanding who they are, what their skills are, what their interests are, and then starting to help them explore occupations that align with those interests and those strengths, and then get prepared for a job search. And that's where all of that resume and LinkedIn and cover letter and interviewing tactics and things come into play. So it's a fairly involved process that we'll talk about it a little bit deeper. But it all starts even before you come to campus, right? And so if you are a confirmed candidate and you are arriving to one of our campuses this fall, then you have access to something called Halt Gateway, right? And the Gateway is where you can participate in a program called Fast Track, yeah, and that is meant for you to get a head start on some of your preliminary career development exercises.
Great, thank you. Umesh, is there anything you want to add to that with your experience with career services?
Yep, I think as Nav was saying that there's so many roles that career services plays, and it's really up to the students on how you maximize, your interaction with the career services. One of the roles I believe it played for me is also a role of a mentor. Because as Nav said, there are cultural nuances, right? How you present your skills in an Indian market versus in an American market. How do you conduct interviews, the right choice of power words, how do you portray your soft skills? This is so different. The entire interview process in India versus in America is very different. Like when I was in India, I worked for 10 years and I had personally myself interviewed at least 2,000 engineers and non-engineers for my company. But then still for me, I was uncomfortable, writing a resume for an American market. It's a very different society, very individualistic, objective. And Hunt's career advisors probably spent 30, 40 hours, whiteboard sessions with me, helping me understand, the nuances of the culture and the corporate world here, so that I can portray myself as the best.
Great, very insightful, thank you. Okay, Nav, how does career services help with prepping students for job hunting, pre-graduation?
Perfect. Yeah. Everybody's different, and kind of your career journey may start at a different point, right? So Umesh, for example, was an MBA candidate, and so he was already entrenched in a career, and he's looking to kind of evolve or transition from that. There are some students who come to us who haven't worked full time before. Perhaps they've completed their undergraduate, maybe they've got some volunteer or some internship experience, but they're a blank slate, and so they're kind of more open to learning more about themselves and kind of where they fit in the world of work. And then we've got some executive MBA students who, again, are in some very senior roles, are very comfortable with the employer that they currently work with, but they're looking to accelerate their career from kind of within, kind of where they currently are. So everybody's at a different, stage in their career development. And so, the work that we do to help students with regards to job search is first understand kind of where you are and where you want to be, and then we also have to look at how much time do you have with us, right? So if you're in a master's or an MBA program and you're going on to a dual degree, then we know that we've got kind of that 1.5 years with you to start kind of developing that career plan. But it starts with we've got a methodology called ROAD, and ROAD is just an acronym for reflect, observe, accelerate, and drive. And so these are kind of, if you want to call them 4 steps or 4 stages of career development. It starts with reflection and understanding who you are and kind of where you want to go. And then from there, your career advisor works on mapping out what are some of the activities that you have to engage in. So if you want to work as a product manager, then it's a matter of understanding more about that role, understanding more about organizations or companies where that role exists, and then it moves towards connecting with alumni or connecting with employer partners, or shedding light on kind of where do you go to network with people who are in this field, so that you can get a sense of the day in the life of a product manager. I think the easiest one to explain is consulting, right? So in a business school, typically on day one in orientation, if you ask the class, hey, how many of you want to get into consulting when you graduate? You get a fair amount, like at least 50% of the students will raise their hand and say, I'd like to get into consulting. As time progresses and they learn more about consulting, and they learn about some of the 80-hour work weeks that some of the consultants have to put in, particularly in the first kind of year of their job. Students who value work-life balance, right, as part of one of their items of importance, tend to say, okay, you know what, I think I'm going to look at something else. Maybe consulting is not the thing I want to do right now. So it's really a lot of activities that are kind of behind how we help students but we start with reflection and understanding who you are. We move into observe, which is how do you learn more about the occupations and the industries that appeal to you. Accelerate is all about kind of the act of applying. So we guide students through what is the correct way to put in an application, one that is going to yield results, right? No doubt we've probably all at one point in our life logged onto a job board like Indeed or something like that and tried to fire off an application for a job. And it has a very, very kind of low return on investment being your time, obviously, to apply for these types of jobs that way. So Accelerate is really, how do you put in a quality application, one that is going to have a likelihood of being reviewed. And then Drive is really about, okay, how do you negotiate salary if you have to, or negotiate terms of your offer, or if you're starting off as an intern, right? So maybe you're looking to do an internship during your study, and you're thinking about how do I parlay that internship into a full-time opportunity when I graduate. Drive is really about how do you make that happen, right? From a behavior standpoint, from a conversation with your employer standpoint, how do you get to that result?
Okay, thank you. I know that you had mentioned a few minutes ago potential networking opportunities. Can you talk to me a little about what type of networking opportunities Career Services provides?
Sure. So throughout the year, we hold a number of events, and so we think, prior to March, these events obviously are on campus, right? And so we've had a number of different events, which we kind of bucket into two categories. One is career discovery, right? And this is kind of about learning about day in the life of say, a consultant. So we hold a lot of panels, for example, where we bring alums back to campus and handle industry panels. So I'm trying to think about the one that we did back in January and October of this past year. We had a consulting panel, a finance panel, a marketing panel, an operations panel. And so we bring in 4 or 5 alums and kind of like what we're doing today, right? Ask them questions related to the job. So, talk about kind of what your responsibilities are, what the day-to-day looks like. If there's kind of ladders associated with the job, how do you accelerate? How do you move up in that field? And so those are all about career discovery, learning more about careers, right? And so we invite alumni and we invite employer partners, right? So I think about the one of the last ones we did on our campus in Boston is there's a company called Hopper. Hopper is you might have the app on your phone, right? When you're booking flights, what they do is they have a lot of analytics behind, when is the right time to book your flight? Is it 21 days in advance, or do you wait for that 4-day window, whatever it happens to be? Hopper is that company that works on that. Proud to say, by the way, it's a Canadian company, but they are based in Boston. Just around the corner from the campus. And so those folks would come out and talk about analytics, right? So for students who are interested in the world of data science and business analytics, they came to campus to talk about, okay, what does Hopper do? What are the types of jobs that we have in Hopper? Where does a business school student, if you're not a hardcore engineering student who has a pure data science background behind you, but you're a business student with a business analytics background or business analytics education, where do you fit in at Hopper? And so they come to campus to do things like that. Again, that is career discovery. The next bucket of events are career connections, and career connections then is our fancy word for career fair, right? So you most likely in your previous forms of education, college, university, you've attended a career fair, which is your typical large open space, a bunch of tables with employers who will talk to you about vacancies, they'll take your resume and things of that nature. And so we call those career connections, right? So some of them are big. Every April we hold a career fair on each of our campuses, but some of them are more niche and small, right? So just before COVID took off, we actually had an alumni from ABB come to Boston's campus to do some interviews for finance roles at ABB, right? Coincidentally, they were also looking for engineers, right? Which we have plenty of, right? Umesh was one of them in his kind of previous life or his previous education. So we have plenty of engineers, but they were looking for kind of more pure engineers, and as an engineering student, if you've got that background but you're doing an MBA, you technically are trying to look for a role within kind of business and not your former life, which is, pure engineering. So for, in cases like that, what we do is we partner with other institutions, right? So we called up Northeastern and we said, hey, we don't want to cannibalize engineering roles, and we don't want you to cannibalize our business roles. Can you please send us your engineering students, right? And so we satisfy ABB's, requirement for a talent pool by supplying them with engineers and then supplying them with our business students for those finance roles, right? So again, another example of a career connection event, but that is, tied to alumni. Since COVID, we had to pivot our career fair. And so Career Connections in the way of an event was all virtual, right? And so we put together a virtual career fair that ran for close to 2 months, right? And this was to connect our students to mainly internship opportunities for kind of the internship period, which, falls between kind of May and August. And what we did is we asked for our employer partners to submit video pitches, right? So they shot, and we didn't say anything fancy. You don't have to, we didn't ask them for like Spielberg level of a video. We said, even if you want to use your phone or an iPad, but just record a video about kind of who you are as an employer. What are you looking for in the way of, an intern, in the way of like qualities of a candidate, and what types of opportunities do you have available? And we posted those for students, and on the student side, we asked them for the same. We said, in addition to your resume and cover letter, shoot a short video, which is like an elevator pitch, right? So who are you, and how do you fit in with this company you're applying to? The employer partners loved it. And again, this was for the ones that still had opportunity, right? In the wake of COVID, I think the common thing to go to is, well, there's a lot of job losses and there are no jobs available. Quite the contrary, right? The nature of work changed, right? And the type of job that employers or types of skills employers needed shifted a bit, right? And so we managed to fit right in and provide around 291 students, right, of Halt students with opportunity. And again, these were all remote work and virtual work, right? Which our students kind of shine at because, they're constantly working with different teams. And as they know, when they go on rotation, they're still connected to, their peers abroad. And so the idea of working on Zoom or effectively communicating via things like Slack and Teams and things of that nature is secondhand to them, right? And so there was an obvious opportunity we were able to take advantage of.
That's great. I'm sure they were all very appreciative. Okay, thank you very much for that, Nav. I do see a message in the chat box here from Amini. I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly, asking if there are slides. So you should be able to see whomever the speaker is on the side of your screen. It should just be a little video, and then we just have the one slide with their name and title. So let me know if you are not able to see the video of them speaking. Okay, next up, I would love to ask Umesh some questions as well about his experience. So Umesh, can you tell me just a little bit more about how you worked with the careers team and really just your overall experience with the careers team?
Sure. So I started working with careers team when Nav was head of it, and I think that it is at that point of time that they started a fast track program. So even before I landed in San Francisco, I started working on my resume. I joined a couple sessions of fast track program. There are two things I knew: that MBA is going to be intensive, and so is the job search. And that's the message I want to send to all the students. Right? If you think you'll focus on your MBA and last few months you'll focus on the job, that itself in a strategy is going to be difficult. I think Hult career advisors always encourage you to start working on your resume right from day one or even before with the fast track program. So I started working on my profile with the started program before I came to San Francisco. Within the first month I was in San Francisco, other than the shock wave, the amount of studies we had to do, sent to my nerves. I was also managing to talk to my career services advisor multiple times within that month, and by the end of the first month, I had my resume and LinkedIn ready. And then I started taking. Her name was Laura Maish, and I started taking her coaching sessions every 2 weeks. I started doing the mock interviews every 2 weeks, and I started asking her, how do I network? generally I'm very extrovert, but then networking in terms of seeking jobs, I'm very uncomfortable with. Maybe the culture that I come from. So she coached me a lot on how do I portray myself confidently, and what are the good networking skills, not to sound that you are seeker, right? Always. And then I think that's when my interaction with career services started, and it lasted for the almost the entire year. As I told earlier, right, I took them as more coaches. So I would go to them whenever I'm not seeing any responses on my applications, or I'm struggling to build my LinkedIn profile or my network. Or just I'm trying to do a mock because I'm exploring different opportunities.
Okay, thank you very much. That's helpful. All right, why don't we actually talk about your current position and how you got there? So can you tell me a little bit about your journey to Amazon and how you ended up in the position that you're in today?
Sure. Um, so let me take a minute and tell me about my journey before Halt and Amazon to give context to the students. As I said, I'm an engineering graduate. Right after my engineering, I joined a very small startup. It was a US-based fintech startup. At that point, I was their sixth employee. I'm happy to say that that company, Finicity, last week was acquired by MasterCard for $1 billion. So I, I was their sixth employee. I grew up to be their head of operations. And I had a short sprint with Deloitte as well, Deloitte Consulting in India. But I realized by working with the Finicity executives, and when I actually came to executive roles, that there's certain business acumen or business skills, if I would have, I would do better, not just in my job, but in my life, because long term, I wanted to start my own company. And I realized that gaining business skills, leadership skills would be critical for my future growth, and also for my me meeting my dreams. So that led me to Halt. Halt was one of my first choices because the way Halt gives experiential learning. 10 years after school, I didn't want to go back to a school which gives me just books and theories. I wanted to go back to schools which is more experiential, which is more international, and which connects me to the world. I always tell to my, my LinkedIn network, Hull is your window to the world. If you do things right, it takes you where you want to. So when I came to the Hult, my strategy earlier was, oh, I've been a VP, and a head of operations for India, so I should be applying for VP and head of operations roles left, right, and center. That's when the reality from the career service advisors stayed in. That yes, you can try for a VP and VP roles and head of international head of operations roles in small companies and medium-sized companies, but that alone as a strategy, it isn't going to work. I also wanted to explore, after having worked in a small company for 10 years, I wanted to explore a big corporate world because it exposes me to my weaknesses and then I can build on it. Other than, I can build on my strengths. That time my career service advisor Laura told me that your plan A should be big corporates, spend 4 to 5 years with big corporates, get your visa and green card sponsored, plus gain the skills that you would otherwise not have, because for the likes of Amazon, it's the scale, right, that you learn to deal with. It's the complexity that you learn to deal with, other than the other nuances of working for a big firm. Amazon. I had a plan A, big corporates, plan B, mid-sized firms, and plan C, which was small firms, if things didn't work out with A and B. Similarly, I had plans for different countries. As Nav said, it's more complicated when you're an outsider. So I had a plan A for US, plan B for Canada, and plan C for Dubai. So that's how I kind of, strategically started to plan my life after Halt. And Halt helped me. And then finally, one day, thanks to the Alum connections, we had one of the LM who is also working in Amazon, still working with Amazon, came to our class for a guest lecture. And then we had an after class interaction wherein I got connected to him on LinkedIn. A month after that, someone from Amazon contacted me that they would want to explore me for a couple of roles, and then I joined Amazon. I'll cut short there. In the Q&A section, I can give you more details about what really happened, transpired in details.
That's great. I'm actually going to follow up then. Quick question about the alum. I know that you're very involved with the Alumni Association. You've been speaking to many of our candidates. Of course, we have you at events like this, which is fantastic. And it sounds like you were able to get the connection for this job through the Alumni Association as well. Can you talk to me a little bit more about your interaction with the Halt Alumni Association?
Sure. So, see, since the time I'm out of Hult, I probably, I've not counted, but when I joined Hult, my LinkedIn network was 500. And now my LinkedIn network is 3,000. And I'm sure 2,000 of them is through the Hult network,
Wow.
right? So I have started interacting with alums, not just because, it's a network that you build, but it's also in future, you are looking for opportunities, right? Not just right after MBA, you're looking for opportunities in future, and your network is looking for opportunities. And I think there's an information exchange, or there's a help exchange that can happen on LinkedIn. It's a great platform. Secondly, I want to give back to my college and many other alums as well, and that's why a lot of us are active on LinkedIn. Helping potential students, current students, to navigate through the questions they have. That's so we kind of created, every city has its own Halt. When I was in Seattle, we had a small group of Halt alums, talking to students. In Austin, we have a really small group. I'm trying to add more people to the Austin chapter, but it's just that I've seen the Halt community very active in the recent years. Because I think so much we got from Halt, we also want to give back to Halt, and with so many opportunities available online and different cities, that's the good part about Halt, right? You find a Haltian in every city you go. Forget about every country you go, you find a Haltian in almost every big city you go, and that gives you connections to make. And in future, it also helps you. In fact, if I can take 1 minute, there was a situation last week wherein one of my friend was stuck in Washington DC. He lost his wallet, and he's stuck in Washington DC, middle of the night. And I reached out to my LinkedIn Halt network, and especially said, shout out to the Halt network. Anyone in Washington DC, I need help. Within half an hour, a Halt Austin Halt alum from Austin contacted me. I know someone in DC which can reach my friend in an hour, and that person reached my friend in an hour and helped him. Otherwise, my friend was on the road. So that's the power of network, and that's also the power of the strength of Halt's network. It's different because it's not just transactional; it's also very personal, and that's the thing we also learn. Like, we want to give back to each other, and we want to grow each other. And I think when people who are on the call and if they are exploring Halt, that's not just you'll get an MBA degree or a master's degree, you'll also get a network which is global and very active and very personal.
I love that. And it's really nice to hear how the alums seem to want to help students and interact with them and continue to expand that network. So that's great. All right, Umesh, I have 2 more questions for you here, and then I will open it up to everyone for the live Q&A session with Umesh, Nav, and our enrollment advisors. So the next question I have for you: what do you find to be the most helpful resource you've received from Hult when looking for employment?
I would say 2. Access to the career advisor is the first one. There was no limit, and I could schedule. Obviously, I needed to schedule a meeting, but there was no limit on number of times I can talk to my career advisor. She was also nice enough to bear me for many hours. And second, access to alums coming to the campus. We all say that go and network, but Halt's course is so intensive that going out is very difficult. And so I think Halt doing its bit to get more people on campus. Let's just connect during the campus hours itself, or on the campus. We don't have to commute. We don't have to take extra time to go somewhere. Those 2 things actually got me the job. So I would say those are the 2 most important. The third, also I would like to mention, is the fast track program. Many people say, oh, it's 1 more year, 1.5 more year, I'll think about it. 3 years, 3 months before graduation. Again, I am re-emphasizing, your job search should start from the day you made the decision to join Halt. And fast track can help you.
Okay. Great, thank you. I think that was really insightful. So I'm going to actually ask you then one more question about advice that you would give then. So what is one piece of advice that you would give to an incoming student that maybe you wish you knew before you started at Hult?
Yep. I would say, I wouldn't say I didn't know it, but I think it bolstered. And I give this advice to everyone. They have like at least 20, 25 people talk to me about Halt every week. And my first advice is be very clear of what you want from Halt, and be very clear of what you want from the degree that you want to do from Halt. Oftentimes, and it's okay, oftentimes we find escape routes. Things are not going good in my current job. Okay, let's do something. Maybe join an MBA. Someone else is joining an MBA. I should also, because it increases salary. Those are all good symptomatic points, right? But at the root, you should know what you should get out from MBA and exactly what Halt MBA provides you. As long as you're clear, you can then come to Halt and ensure that you are getting the output that you want. In the MBA terms, we say return on investment, right? It's a big investment in terms of your time, money, and opportunity cost. And if you're vague about, what are your objectives for doing an MBA, why doing it from Halt, then half of your time, probably first 6 months, will go in just trying to figure things out. And that's a big amount of loss, right? So I would say be very clear, objective about what you want, and then match what Halt provides you. If Halt is a choice, and when you come, ensure you double down on your inputs to get that output. I think one of our deans said that the input that you put in Halt is the output that you get. So it's not just you could come to Halt, you got in a degree, somehow you'll pass and get the degree, and the window of opportunity was open. Maybe you're lucky, but then for you to find your dream job or the next dream step, you need to ensure that you are giving a lot of inputs. I didn't celebrate my birthday, my anniversaries, no weekends, nothing. We were all studying, and that's fine. That's the year I chose to invest money and time. Thankfully, my wife later came and joined me, so I had her company. But we didn't have time to celebrate anything or travel anywhere other than networking, studying, and having fun with the college students. And that was the point of it, right? So be very clear, and it's gonna be an intensive time, but it's gonna be your life-changing time. It has been for me and for many of my friends. So be prepared.
I think that's really. Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, can I just add to that? So clarity, right? So Umesh is talking about having this level of clarity, and to help with that, we've a few years ago we partnered with an organization called Burning Glass. Burning Glass is another Boston-based organization that does a lot of research around occupations, right, and skills associated with occupations. And so what we've done is we partnered with them and taken data from Burning Glass and developed something called Career Mapper. Right. And so Career Mapper is something that helps with this clarity that Umesh is talking about. So kind of Career Mapper has you do answer a couple of questions, a little bit of a survey on kind of who you are, what your skills are today. Right. It asks, well, what are you thinking about? What are you thinking about tomorrow? Like, what do you want to be? Right. And so you could put in an occupation, for example. And Career Mapper starts to examine kind of what you said about yourself today in the way of kind of your experience and your skill and your education, where you want to be tomorrow. And it helps give you some guidance on, so what are the skills that you need, right? So for that job that you're looking for, that transition you're hoping to make from A to B, what skills are you missing, right? Umesh said something earlier about kind of understanding his strengths, but also understanding his weaknesses, and then focusing time and energy on developing the weaknesses, right? In a sense, that's kind of what this Career Mapper is going to tell you about, is where are the gaps, right? So what do you have in the way of knowledge, expertise, and experience today? And given what you want to do tomorrow, what are those gaps? And how do you fill them in then with, not just degree program, but, down to courses, right? So what types of courses do you need to take so that you kind of build your knowledge base around kind of where you want to be tomorrow? And what skills, hard skills, soft skills do you need to develop? I would encourage Career Mapper, and I'm just looking at the chat. Angela says she's accessed Career Mapper early. It's great. Gives you market data skills. Really easy to use. Yeah, it's a simple tool. I'd encourage you to go use it. It's free, right? So just log on to halt.edu, scroll to the bottom, and you're going to see something called Career Mapper, and give it a shot. And it's meant for, we talked about people being in different stages of their career development. If you're early career and maybe you've never even worked before, you can use Career Mapper. If you're a senior and you're thinking about kind of what your next move is, your transition or your career acceleration, you can use it as well. So it's not kind of meant for early career, mid, or just late career. It's meant for everybody. So encourage you to take a look at it, because it's going to help you with the clarity that kind of Umesh has talked about. Because sometimes students think, okay, I'm going abroad, I'm going to study internationally, and this is going to be a cakewalk, right? This is going to be, I don't call it a vacation, but to a certain extent, I get to explore, San Francisco, Boston, London, Dubai, all Shanghai, New York, great cities, wonderful cities. But you could get carried away, right? And you can get carried away if you don't know what's on your plate, right? What's on your plate academically in the way of kind of what are you required to do for like courses, exams, assignments and things of that nature. That's part of it. But the other part then is career, right? You don't want to be, in July graduating in August and then figuring out, hey, you know what? That business analyst role that I want, it requires me to learn Python or R, and you're now just figuring that out, right? So Career Mapper helps you with that, and I encourage you guys to get a head start and use that today.
Great, thank you for bringing that up, Nav. Definitely wanted to review that today, so it's perfect. And thank you, Umesh, for answering all those questions as well. I think that was, again, really insightful. I love that of going into this with purpose. But now I would love to open this up to a live Q&A session. And I'm going to invite our enrollment advisors to come on the call as well. So we'll have Francisco, Adam, and Axel. There we go, have everyone here. So feel free to input any questions that you have. Why don't we do in the Q&A box if you're able to, just so they're all in one space. And I see that we have a couple questions that already came in. So first question is for Umesh. What's the most important aspect of managing coursework at Halt, especially during the first month?
I would say time management and not panicking. I wasn't very good. I'm generally very disciplined and organized, but I wasn't very good at time management before I came to Hult, and I had to really quickly learn time management, because there was so many things to do, and planning sequentially and spending hours and hours on one thing to be perfect was going to put you down on something else. But that's where my teammates helped. You have a class of, I had a class of 75 nationalities, everyone with different strengths, and many of my friends were good at time management. And so what we would do is they would teach me time management, because I'm a storyteller. I can go on and in search for perfection. But they would say, okay, you got 15 minutes, you tell your story, and then we will extract the important aspects from the story. We had a team member who was from military, so he better know about time management. So he taught me a lot. And then we had a German, both know about time management way better than me, and they helped me along.
Great, thank you. The next question is for Nav. Nav, in your opinion, what is the #1 mistake incoming students make, and how can you avoid it?
Yeah, I think it's funny. Umesh is talking about time management, and it's kind of related to time management in the sense that I said we have this kind of this mantra to start early, right? And really start to think about yourself and your career early. I think some students get into a frame of mind where they're with us for a year and they think that they've got a lot of time, right? And job search happens when I get closer to graduation. If you're lucky, perhaps, right? But our data shows that the sooner you start thinking about your career and start doing some of those fundamental, career development exercises like the fast track program, the sooner you start to get traction on your job search, the sooner you get offers, right? And so I think the #1 mistake is not being aware of how much time it takes to find the job that you want, right? So this idea of like, even in a good economy, to find the job that you want, could take up to 6 months, right? To find any job, a lot less, right? If we want to go deliver pizzas for Domino's tomorrow, they're hiring. I'm sure all 6 of us on the screen can put in an application and we'll be successful. To find the job that you want takes longer than that. So you got to work backwards, right? And you also have to work further backwards to understand kind of who you are and what your kind of development needs are. So for example, I was on a call this morning with folks from Asia, right? And we talked a lot about networking, and one of the questions came in from someone in Asia that said, culturally, we're not good at this, right? And I wanted to reframe that to say it's not that you're not good at it, it's just it's different, right? So the expectation around networking is different in Asia than it is in the US. But his fear was, how do I network like an American, right? He like bluntly put it that way, and a bit of a stereotype, but we all get what he's trying to say. And so for someone like that, there's additional work, right, that has to go into how do I tell my story? How do I get comfortable introducing myself to, people of different cultures? And every student is going to go through that, right? Similarly, you drop an American in Shanghai, or you drop an American in Dubai, there's all sorts of nuances they need to be aware of when they go out and network. Like, you don't just shake an Arab woman's hands, right? An American will gravitate to that as soon as possible. So it's really, the biggest mistake is kind of underestimating the amount of time that it takes to perfect your job search and understand kind of where you fit in. And then related to time management is also, I don't want to call it, I had to choose my words carefully. I don't want to call it wasting time, right? But here's what I see, right? So I'm in Boston, and if you've ever seen the Boston campus, we've got a wonderful bar at the entrance, right? And at the end of a long day, students tend to go to that bar and hang out with each other, and they, get a pitcher of beer, get a couple of drinks, whatever, and they're just, de-stressing, which is important to do for your mental health. You definitely have to de-stress. But I'm a bit biased, right? So I like to tell students it's okay to de-stress. And it's okay to spend your money down there at that bar. But if you're going to de-stress and hang out with friends over some drinks, why don't you go do it in the financial district during happy hour? Because at least when you go there with your friends, you're going to be able to network with some other professionals in Boston that are working, right? So it's just being a bit more, tactical about how you spend your time as well. And Umesh kind of mentioned that as well, in the sense of, pick and choosing kind of which celebrations you can engage in and kind of which long weekend trips you can take versus not, right? So it's just that bit of information, right? Is time, understanding time.
And Brooke, if I can add to that, one more thing. On the selection, I would want to say, we all want to get expert in everything, accounting, marketing, leadership, you name the subject, we want to get an A. So it's a shift of mindset from, grade mindset to knowledge mindset, and Halt call is the growth mindset. I wanted to excel in accounting, finance, and marketing, but I didn't want to be an expert, because I'm sure I'm not looking for an accounting or a marketing job after my school. So I was focusing on the skills that I wanted: leadership, right, and entrepreneurship, strategy. I would say that sometimes we get lost and say, I want to get an A in everything. I was okay to get a B, though I always want to be the topper, but I was always okay to get a B or an A minus in a subject I didn't want to excel at. That doesn't mean that I don't know accounting. I use my accounting in Amazon world, what I learned from Halt, and I was one of the top 20% at Halt in accounting. But it's just that I didn't want to spend way too much time in accounting if I have to manage time.
Mm-hmm. Makes sense. Okay, I do just want to be aware of our timing here. So if you have any other questions, feel free to input them into the Q&A function, and we will try to run through these here. Okay, so Jenna is not sure who she should direct this towards, but she's curious about what the class sizes are for the most part. So if any of my enrollment folks want to take that.
Hi, Jenna. Yes, so this is Francisco from the MBA program. I'm an enrollment advisor. So definitely, if you are, there's a little bit of a difference in the class cohort size between, let's say, an executive MBA program and the full-time MBA program, the one-year MBA program. Typically, what you're looking for, and I know, Jenna, you might be considering potentially an executive MBA program. You're looking at cohort sizes of around 25 to 35 students. You're looking at certain lecture style courses that will have all the contingent of the student in the classroom, but you also will be spread out into smaller groups of 4 to 6 people, depending on whether you're working on case studies, working on simulations, working on other deliverables that you'll be doing in the classroom. So yes, you will have a significant portion of the time allocated to working with the entire cohort, and particularly with an executive MBA cohort. It is, as I mentioned, a smaller cohort than with the MBA, but there will be different deliverables and opportunities to obviously work on more smaller groups and exercises, and will be evaluated by the professors. I'm not sure if someone else would like to add to that.
That's perfect, Francisco. She has another question as well. Do you have metrics showing how many of your MBA or executive MBA programs end up working internationally? I think we can refer her to the career report booklet that we have.
Yes.
Okay, great. Next question that we have here. If I am currently unemployed, looking for part-time or an internship, what can I do to prepare for Hult for my dual degree, MIB, and Master's in Business Analytics? There we go. Trying to use the best of my time right now. Thank you so much for this. Do we want to give now?
Sure, if I can address that. Yeah, you know, it's a really good question. I would encourage everybody who is you know, coming to school in the fall to start looking at roles that they're interested in, right? And so and that is the benefit of a site like Indeed, right? Because you can type in, you know, a role and you'll get a bunch of job descriptions and job postings that you can look at, and you can look at kind of what the role responsibilities are. You can look at what they're asking for in the way of requirements, right? And you know, I said use Career Mapper to kind of see where your gap is, where you are today, where you want to be tomorrow, and what gap you need to fill. And you know, when you're on campus or when you're studying and you've got the opportunity to do an internship, right? So for you guys coming to school in the fall, you know, you have an internship period between May and August. And if you're going on to the dual degree, you have an internship period again from October to March. So 2 substantial amounts of time where you can get your feet wet, right? So if you've never kind of worked in analytics and this is something that you're studying, well, now's your time to do an internship in, you know, in analytics, whether that's, you know, marketing analytics, business analytics, supply chain, whatever it happens to be. But that's how you start to kind of develop and build skill while you're studying. But an internship has all sorts of other value as well, right? In the sense that you are proving yourself, you're demonstrating yourself to somebody who could be a more permanent employer once you graduate. You're developing broader networks with, you know, professionals that are kind of working in that organization and with that organization, like their suppliers, vendor partners, customers, things of that nature. And on the point of internship, right, with our students, we know that 63% of them manage to convert their internship to a full-time job opportunity. So internship itself it could be a very lucrative way to a more permanent job once you graduate, right? So what you can do before you come to class is start to think about the roles that interest you, using Career Mapper, right, to identify the gaps that you have to fill, right? And you can get a head start on some things. Like if you are bound to do business analytics with us, you know, you can start to, there's a lot of free content out there, right? You know, introductory courses on things like Python and R and even Tableau. Like if you wanted to learn how to create data visualizations, there's tons of, you know, great resources out there. That way, when you get to class, you've got a little bit of a head start, right? You know, it always comes in handy when you're, you know, talking to prospective internship sponsors and employers.
Great. Thank you, Nav. Again, just be aware of the time. I'm going to ask 2 more questions before we close out for the evening. So this next question is for Umesh. Did you rotate to any other campuses, and how was your experience?
Yes, so I did rotate to Boston. San Francisco was my base campus. One of the things I believe helps us, and I think Halt made us do, is making yourself uncomfortable. I think the entire idea of you know, campus rotation is, yes, to explore a new place, explore a new campus, but also to take you out from a comfortable position. Within 6 months, you have friends, you know your strength. You know, if you are doing well, your professors know you, your deans know you. You get very comfortable, and then you go to a new place. You have to make all those relationships again. right? And you also have to build a credibility with an entire new set of professors again. And that's a challenging but a very good thing to do, because lets you focus on, again, your growth areas. So I did that, and it is such a feeling that you get when you are actually able to go to 2 campuses and still win the hearts and minds of students and the faculty there. It makes you so confident that it prepares you for that interview wherein you are supposed to be very confident, right? The second thing it does is it changes your teams. It forces you to change teams, right? Other than some permanent teams for the entire year. And then a choice of a team is the most important thing I learned at Halt. When you're doing, as Francisco was saying, that you'll be in smaller groups working on different assignments or different projects. You make choices of your team members, and sometimes Halt allocates it. Having to work with different team members from different nationalities with different skill sets arises a lot of good discussions, conflicting discussions, and makes you negotiate. And it's not just the hard skill that Halt teaches, also teaches you soft skills. And at my job at Amazon, I'm not just using hard skills every day, I'm also using soft skills. And so rotating builds you on your soft skills as well, of negotiation, how to deal with uncomfortable situations, how to deal with strangers all over again, how to build your credibility in an entire new campus, and then how do you pick and select teams again? Because if we are leaders of the future, we are either hiring at our current companies or hiring for ourselves when we open our own companies. And Halt kind of lets you live that life through rotation. I strongly recommend rotation. You don't have to go out of country depending upon your situation. If you could go out of country, I would immensely recommend that as well. Change of culture also teaches you so much.
Great, thank you. All right, last question of the evening. This one is for Nav from Benjamin. What would you say is the most requested skill by current employers given the COVID-19 situation?
Digital skills, digital awareness, right? So, when we put together that virtual career fair, and we asked our employer partners, what are you hiring for right now? And they had all their standard roles, right? Marketing analyst, business development, and all sorts of things of that nature. But then what they really stressed when I said they were to put together a video pitch in terms of what they're looking for in the ideal candidate, they all stressed this idea to be able to work remotely and virtually, right? And it's actually hard and soft skill, right? So digital skill in the sense that they're looking for them to be able to obviously use your basics, right? Like your Microsoft Office, suite. But on top of that, things like Teams and team collaboration software. So Microsoft Teams or Slack, depending on what organization you're in, they've got a variety of different, team collaboration tools. But to be able to navigate that, using things like Salesforce, right? So if it's a sales organization or to be able to run database queries or things of that nature. So digital skill was important, but then there's a soft skill as well behind working virtually, right? Soft skill, one is time management. We measure some of the time. I mean, I think we all worked from home at some point during this, and I think all of us are at home right now, right? Based on the backgrounds, I don't recognize campus, so I can see everyone is at home. And when you're working at home, there's all sorts of distraction, right? For some, it's the television. For some, it's kids. For some, it's the refrigerator, right? But there's distractions everywhere in your home. And so it's just really, how do you manage your time and what type of discipline do you have, right? And so a lot of that is, again, in demand right now when we talk about what employers are looking for. So this is irrespective of like the skills required for the actual role, what they're looking for to survive in COVID and be productive is, things like, how do you manage time? How do you communicate effectively via email? So you're not writing pages and pages of stuff for people to read, because we're all getting more email than we did before, right? How do you navigate conference calls and things of that nature? How do you look professional, right? When you have a virtual team meeting. So all of these things are of extreme importance at the moment.
Great, thank you for that, Nav. Thank you, Umesh, as well, to our enrollment advisors, and thank you to all of our attendees for joining today. That is all that we have for you guys today. If you have any other questions, please feel free to email admissions@halt.edu. And if you're interested in attending any of our other virtual events, you can go to halt.edu/events. So thank you so much, everyone, and I hope you guys have a great day.
Have a great evening, everyone.
Yep. Thanks, everyone. Have a good one.